Hey, comic skewers, today I would like to introduce you to an exciting young artist, Dominic Bustamante. He is a Filipino who was raised in Vancouver, and he's got some exciting work. We will be talking about that work here. His social media links are down below so that you can see the artwork that he has produced. It has a lot of work up on online and on Webtoons. Before we do that, I would like to remind you all that we have a Patreon. If you would like to help out the Comics Cube a little bit, if you like what we do, then there's a few tiers there, one of which is called The Producer. You will not only get early access to a bunch of the episodes, you will also get works in progress. And at the end of each episode, your name will be in the credits. Without further ado, Dominic Bustamante. Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. Today I am with Dominic Bustamante. Up and comer, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good until I realized that you graduated from art school in 2020. So you might be the youngest guest I've ever had on the show.
Really? Oh, cool. Well, I'm honored. I mean, okay, I have to say, this is really trippy for me because I'm going from like listening to you in my ear while I work, and now like you're directing things at me or saying things to me. So that's pretty weird for me.
Well, yeah, I guess it's
It's
fairly
good though.
weird.
Yeah.
And then you graduated from art school in 2020, at which point you became a full-time artist, right?
Yeah, like whenever people ask, like, when did you start professionally? I really look at that as when I really started because that's kind of when I got the ball really rolling. Yeah, it's comics was not what I thought I was gonna go into right away. That was always something I wanted to cross off the list. I really thought I was gonna go into like an animation or video game studio. And a lot of my classmates and my friends, that's where they went too. And this was sort of like the gamble of uh, kind of just like, let's see what happens here. Things seem to be going in some sort of direction that seems really positive. So I went here instead.
If since you watch my show, I will ask you the first question I ask everyone who comes onto my show for the first time, which is
Yeah.
why do you love comics?
I do watch your show and I was prepared for this. I had an answer ready. Yeah, so comics. They really scratch the itch. Like I love the combo of words and pictures together. When I was a kid, like I grew up on picture books. Like when my mom and I would go to the grocery store, she would kind of sometimes she would just leave me in the book section and then I would just read books there. Or I would be in the grocery cart with a book in hand, so I would be looking through the pictures and stuff. Um, and so comics were really just the natural progression for me. I love that they're very accessible for people. Like I know I knew someone who had a lot of trouble reading in school, and it wasn't until he picked up a Punisher comic, and that was when it really clicked for him, and it kind of he was able to grasp it more easily. So I love that they're just kind of a good entry point for people. And also, they're so available now, not only for readers, but for creators. Like, it kind of feels like podcasts where everyone's just doing a comic now, because, like, everyone's doing a Webtoon comic, right? Um,
Low barrier to entry. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But with that said, like, I think there's something really beautiful about them in that they're really hard to do. Like, you have to dedicate a lot of time to them, and um, you can really lose steam along the way on one project. Like you kind of really have to love what you're doing with them. Um, it's so true what everyone says, where it's like you don't really do it for money. You kind of have to be a little bit crazy about comics. Like you really have to love doing it because it's very kind of feels like it's very little reward for all the hard work that you're doing with it. But yeah, I think there's something really beautiful about that, but they're just really, really difficult to do.
It's got to be for love, because if you were doing it for money, like, wouldn't it just be for picture books? It feels like
Yeah,
that's significantly less work.
yeah, exactly. No, 100%. Like, Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I feel like a lot of comic creators, they're a little bit crazy in that way.
Do you remember the comic that made you fall in love with comics?
Yes, and you've interviewed this person, I think several times now because I've listened to them. It was Bone, Jeff Smith's Bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a kid, I grew up on that. And then years and years later, when I was older, I bought the whole like black and white, this giant edition of the
Oh,
book. Yeah, the really thick one. Um, because when I was a kid in elementary school, I could never finish the story because they would always be rented out by other people. So I would just kind of, in parts, be able to read it. But that was the first one that really like, I don't know how to articulate this without it sounding kind of weird, but reading Bone was like, and maybe it just speaks to my personality as a kid. When I read it, I was like, oh, that doesn't look too hard. Like I could probably do that. Uh,
it looks
maybe because it was so
deceptively
simple.
simple.
Yeah, maybe because it felt so accessible to me. But yeah, that one was really the one where I was like, it really sparked my imagination and also looked really fun to do. So that's something that I had to really go back and track. And I was like, yeah, it was Bone for me. Yeah.
Is it in fact not too hard?
Um, it's something you kind of just have to push through every single day. And the annoying thing is, like, I feel like new kind of feelings about it that are kind of difficult. It's sort of like art block. Like, none of the solutions are ever um, like once you've tried one solution, next time you get art block, like it's a completely new game, and you just have to try something else. But for comics, I think I don't know. That's what I
Yeah.
mean, where it's like I just have to. It's weird that we keep coming back to it.
It's
Like,
Bone specifically is an art style that as a kid I would have thought was easy, and then I would have tried drawing it and realized it was really hard. Because if you mess up a line, then you've messed up, right?
do
Like,
you draw at all?
oh yeah, I do. But not on Instagram.
Yeah.
I draw enough to realize what's hard. How's that? Um, yeah. So was Bone also the first comic where you decided to start making them? It was, right? Like,
It's the one that I can remember. Yeah, I think a lot of kids do this. We're always kind of just making little comics because that's what I remember me doing. Even doing makeshift like little picture books as a
yeah.
kid. That's something I was doing too. But um, it was probably Bone. Like when I was a kid, I had moments like little ripples of reading comics. I wasn't quite as into them as I am now. Um, but yeah, if I think about it, Bone was really the one that was kind of consistent for me, where I would always like if I saw it at a store, I would pick it up because that was something that I was always really excited about.
But was there anything else from, like, say, movies or video games or cartoons that also inspired you?
Yeah, I grew up on um, the Fantastic Four series. I think it was like in the 80s or something. It was one of the older ones. Um, yeah, like the big two, DC and Marvel, I didn't get into until much later, but I did grow up on them. And I remember like I had this big like encyclopedia of the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember the classic designs being really appealing to me as a kid. But it was that we talked about it a little bit, not just off camera. We talked about it on Instagram, where Disney was a really, really big influence for me. In fact, it wasn't a comic, but uh, the animated Snow White. That was what,
First one, the OG.
yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
OG. That was what really started it all, not only for Disney, but for me too. Like that's what kind of started me drawing. I had to ask my mom a couple of years ago. I was just like, do you remember if I was drawing before that, or was it because of that movie that I really started to um, pick up a pen and like start scribbling? because that's my earliest memory of drawing is I would just scribble Snow White on any surface I could find. And what's cool is, so I've gone to Disneyland, I think 3 times now, and at the park, because you know how they have the characters at the parks, right?
Yeah,
I was able to go to and meet Snow White herself, like not the actual actress in the movie, obviously, but
obviously.
yeah. And I was able to thank her. Whenever I go see her, I go thank her and I give her a little drawing, and I'm just like, yeah, so your movie was really what helped me and inspired me to start drawing. And even though she's not actually um, a part of the original movie, it was kind of cool just to be able to thank someone who was kind of like the avatar for that movie and embodying the spirit of it. Um, so I have a very soft spot for that movie, and I attribute a lot of like my fondness of drawing towards that movie.
Over on Facebook for the past year, I actually chronicled my marathon of every single Walt Disney Animated Studios movie,
I love
starting
that.
from Snow White all the way up to Moana 2. It's it's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of weird stretches. That early 2000 stretch is a little strange, but
Hopefully, I'm not
uh
putting it. Do you have favorites?
my two favorites are Moana and Robin Hood. Those are my two
Ooh,
favorites.
Robin Hood. Okay, interesting one.
However, if you were to tell me that Beauty and the Beast or Sleeping Beauty are the two best things Disney has ever done, I would not argue. Those are just like artistically beautiful, both of those. Like they're just
Yeah,
beautiful to look at. Yeah. We're
Sleeping Beauty is like on a whole other tier, in my opinion. There's no other Disney movie like it.
Yeah, Sleeping Beauty is just like it's do you know the story of Sleeping Beauty? Like how it almost put him out of business?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's insane. It's like it was supposed to come out in 1955 with the opening of the parks, which is why the castle in in Disneyland is Sleeping Beauty's castle.
Yeah.
But because of the watercolors and stuff, it came out 4 years too late. It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy, but it's worth it and it's beautiful. Anyway, let's get back to comics. uh, okay, so in 2020, that must be weird. You graduated during the height of COVID, but you that was towards the end of it, the end of your art
Yeah.
school.
Weird. Yeah. My mind was kind of, I don't know what I was going through in fourth year, final year of university. I found it incredibly stressful. Not even factoring in COVID. I think for me at that time, it was just, I was at that point of like, and then I end the chapter of education and I go into the real world, and whatever happens to me there, I don't know. And I really didn't quite know what I was going to do. And I think that's why comics, or what was happening with my comics journey, that was something I was able to grab onto mentally and um, just hold on to so I didn't feel so stressed. But yeah, that was a really weird time. Like at that point, our professors were just kind of like, "Hey, so if you've got any for your final projects, like you can just hand them in as is, even if they're not finished," because everyone was just so out of it. And yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know what to say. It was just a really weird time.
this is where you also picked up your writing and collaborative partner AJ O'Mason.
Yeah, I did. I'll set up the scene for you. There was one night I was up at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people know I'm a night owl. So with 4 a.m. brain, I put up a post on Reddit. Have you ever gone on the subreddit comic book collabs?
Not comic book collabs, no. And but so unless I have, and I just wasn't aware. But anyway,
Yeah, there's a subreddit called comic book collabs, and I put up a post, um, basically just being like, "Hey, so I have this project that I've had in my head for a while. Um, Previously, for a third year class in university, I had done a 9-page comic. Um, and it's basically the draft version of what the book is now. And I put those pages up on the Reddit post, and I was like, here's the pages that I've done. If you are interested in the little story there is in it or the characters, like, let me know. I can't promise that there will be any payment. I don't even know what this will be. I'm thinking it could be a webtoon, or we could just put it online somewhere. But just let me know. And I didn't think anybody would respond to it. And I ended up getting actually quite a few responses, and one of them turned out to be AJ. And I did talk to some of the other writers on there. But I guess AJ and I just really clicked. Like, we had a bunch of emails back and forth, and he was talking about, like, we connected about our love for Batman. And yeah, and then I suddenly found myself with someone who wanted to write with me. But my main thing was really like, I just wanted a best friend who knew the world and the characters intimately, because I don't know why, I just didn't feel very comfortable doing that to my friends, and just, I don't know, like dumping all of my lore from the stories and the characters on them. So
No,
I
I
really
get you
wanted
because
someone.
if
Right.
they would have been comfortable with it, it would have already happened,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, so I wanted that person that we could just like freak out over like what was going on in the story. And that's exactly what I got with AJ. Like, to this day, like, he's very much that person for me. Um, and yeah, so I shared it in the samples, but we did like two little test collaborations together, and we just ended up working really well. Like, we're very good collaborators. Um, and yeah, we still go back. The post is still up on there. It's we still go back to it.
We are one of those tests is on Webtoons. It is for better or worse, which, by
Yes.
the way, I'm aware a lot of the people who watch the show are shall we say direct market comics fans, no
Yeah, yeah.
printed comics. Guys, Webtoons has more viewership than there are people in the world. That's not really true, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So Webtoons might be the biggest platform for comics
Yeah.
right now. So for better or worse is a 3 episode supernatural drama, and that one was a trip, man. So
Really?
how did you guys
Yeah.
come up with that one?
We just Okay, so that was for a short story contest that Webtoon was doing. And AJ and I just threw a bunch of ideas at each other, like, what do you think is cool? And I think we landed on horror pretty quickly. Um, I think naturally he and I just like that genre. And we both started listing like imagery and themes that we really liked in horror. And for me, one of the things that I really love is like a scary bride. Just the visual of like the white dress and the veil. I'm also like, I really
Like
like
the
the Haunted
Corpse
Mansion.
Bride? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Corpse Bride, like the brides in the Haunted Mansion at the Disney park. Like, I don't know what it is, but just that visual is so creepy and beautiful to me. So I was like, we need to do something with that concept.
It's a good
Um,
visual.
it is, yeah.
It's a good visual.
Also, I really like a possession story. Like, even in
Yeah.
horror movies, like I'll do a possession movie any day.
And after that, you did the Proud Monster for Crime Pays by Altruist Comics.
Yes.
So one of the things, so right here, you started with horror, you went to crime. One of the things that I realized you're able to do really well is, aside from sequential storytelling, is the use of color. What influences that for you?
Um, I wish I could pinpoint that to something, but maybe it is just from Disney, growing up on Disney, because they're so colorful. Like, it is just a natural thing for me, where I don't have to think too hard about color. Um, it is something I'm more conscious of now in terms of storytelling, where um, I do think a lot about mood and atmosphere when it comes to color. Um, I wish I had a better answer prepared, but I think it
No,
is probably
it's true. I get it.
yeah. Maybe it is just growing up on Disney and all the visuals of, very colorful films that play in my head.
And you also do a lot of superhero stuff. So in Justice Rex for Blake, I'm gonna mispronounce his name. Donaldson?
Yeah, that's
Donaldson? All right.
Donaldson.
So in Justice Rex for Blake Donaldson, so he reached out to you on Instagram and then he asked you to contribute to this particular universe. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I think he saw my fan art on Instagram and yeah, reached out to me for this superhero story that he was working on. He had already, I think there was already there was another comic focusing on a different character called Clementine that was already in the universe. He had already made that comic, and he pitched it to me, this project to me, explaining that it was focusing on two different characters in that universe as well. And I just thought the story was really cute. He and I connected because, well, my dad passed away in 2023. So
My
that was something,
condolences.
thank you. Yeah, that was something that he and I connected over. And it was also in the story as well. Rex's father has also passed. And so that was still pretty fresh for me. So that was something I really wanted to uh, tackle in that story. Um, but yeah, that was just a cool project to work on. I'm still working on it actually. For there's a next part of it that I'm currently inking actually. But he's such a cool person. Like that was really fun to do.
Over on Webtoons as well, you have MX Nomer, which is a play, I assume, on Misnomer, for season 2 of House of Slay. Again, guys, if you're not on Webtoons, get on Webtoons.
Yeah.
And it's also a superhero story. The cool part is that it was started by and stars Asian fashion designers in New York. So how much does that mean to you?
Mm, uh, I think just
This is probably the part where we should mention that you're a Filipino who lives in
yes,
Vancouver. No,
this
is it
is
Vancouver?
true.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Vancouver. It was just a really cool project to get to do because they they're so I, those I've never met them, I've never spoken to them,
Yeah.
but just reading about the stuff, they come off literally like superheroes. They're very almost like Greek gods. They just have this aura about them that's very uh, elevated, I suppose. And with the fashion world, I think it really does lend itself to this superhero universe very well. Um, and did you read the whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one of them makes an appearance at the end, and that was actually really cool to get to draw him. It's also kind of weird when you have to draw someone's likeness into a comic. That's something I don't really get to do very often, but um, yeah, that was pretty cool. Weird thing about that story, though, I remember I'm so proud of that project, but I had pink eye during that whole process.
Really?
Yeah, that was a very memorable one just for that. Like through by the end, like I had pink eye in one eye and then it alternated to the other eye. So I was really like struggling through by the end. But when I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, that was a lot of hard work. And I did it all pushing through pink eye.
Yeah, that can't possibly have been comfortable.
No.
Uh, there is a long tradition of Filipinos in comics internationally, which I believe you are now discovering.
Yeah, yeah. I did not know that. Nobody told me that, and I only found that out this year. That was crazy.
Yeah, are there any particular Filipino artists that you found yourself gravitating to?
Well, actually, I only just recently started to read Trece.
Yeah,
Um, I've never read it. Really cool. Like the concept is bonkers to me. I love it. Um, but Who's I can't remember the name. There's the mermaid comic, Jezebel.
Jezebel.
Yes. Who started that? Mars?
So
Is it
yeah,
Mars?
Jezebel was started by Mars Ravelo. Mars Ravelo. I switch accents when I switch languages. So Mars Ravelo, who was also the co-creator of our leading superhero Darna and
Yes. Yeah.
and Captain Barbell and a lot of other. He's basically Stan Lee for the Philippines.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, Jezebel is very very popular.
What is it about Filipinos and mermaids also? I was thinking about that.
I
Could it
assume it's
just be
the
that
I
our
assume it's the
connection?
island thing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured.
I can't really see why it would be anything else. Because like where else are mermaids big, right? It's the Mediterranean, which is right next to the sea. Yeah, so I assume it's the sea thing. Um, I'm not exactly. It's So this is an interesting thing. In the Philippines, mermaids are associated with gay culture.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Yeah, because the mermaids, the Filipino word is sirena, which comes from the word sirens. So sirens themselves, Greek sirens are not necessarily mermaids,
Mhm.
right?
Weren't they were
Like,
like bird women?
yeah, they're just out there in the sea on a rock somewhere trying to lure you to your death. But there's that movement there. And then for whatever reason, I don't know the origins of this. The term sirena has come to mean a gay man in the Philippines.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and now I'm wondering why that is. Maybe I should take all of this out because I just look really ignorant right now. Yeah. But yeah, but there's something to so Jezebel is very popular. She's not as popular as Darna. No one really is. So yeah, but I'm glad that you're rediscovering your roots. So there is a lot of Filipino comics out there.
Yeah, the Filipino connection to comics, that made me just genuinely so proud. Um,
If you ever come back here, you should go to the Filipino Comics Museum.
I didn't even know we had a comics museum. See, that's also really cool. I
It,
also didn't know that we had cons and expos over there. Like that makes sense that we do, but and I want to go back just to visit them.
yeah, there's pretty much one a month.
Really?
Yeah, there's pretty much one every month. Um, I would say comics are big in Manila, not so much the Philippines.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So, but there is pretty much one Comic Con a month in the Philippines. One is called the Philippine International Comics Festival. It's every July. What that does is a publisher picks 10 comics to publish and launch, and at the same time, a bunch of local and international comic book people sell their comics.
That is so
I co-hosted it last year. It was pretty cool.
no way. No, that is really cool. Good on you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so you did Will I Regret It for the By Visibility anthology and Still by Kat Kalamia and Falco.
Yeah.
Those are creators I follow over on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think Kat specifically is very, very well. I guess both Kat and Phil are very active in the Kickstarter community, trying to not only push stuff that they're working on, but also push other other products that are in the Kickstarter space.
Yeah. Will I Regret It was the first project that I did with them. And that was a really cute story. I love it when any creator comes to me with a queer storyline. That's always fun for me to do. Um, Also, that was my first project trying out Clip Studio Paint, which is a program that I use now. Um,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it better?
I I personally prefer it over Photoshop, and I know that Clip Studio Paint is more catered towards making comics, so I find it really helpful. Um, and with Still By, it was just a really cool story. I loved that I got to play with like Instagram visuals at the end. If you saw, like, I loved
Yeah.
making that profile and post for the superhero character. And also, it was just fun to create the character designs for that. Like I forget his name, but the older superhero with the red hair. I was like, when do you ever get to see like plaid on a superhero? That was I thought that was really funny. Um, yeah, no, those were just really cool projects to work on. I love working with Kat and Phil. They're just the nicest people.
How important would you say it is to have this kind of representation in today's society?
Um, maybe now it's more important with just what's been going on in the US. I feel like there's a certain group of people that are a lot more brave about being very hateful, I guess is the word that I'm going to use there. So it is important to really show this kind of representation, and um, it makes me feel good working on it.
Yeah.
I that it makes people feel good reading it. Just to know that uh, there's a place for you in fiction. That's how I'm kind of wrapping my head around it. Um,
It's true because if there's a place for you in fiction, there is a place for you in the real world.
exactly.
And if you don't see yourself in fiction, you might not think that there's a place for you in the real world, which there is, but you might think that there isn't.
Since you're a comic um, enthusiast, like growing up, what was it like for you just to not really see Filipino characters so much? Or did you? Maybe I'm just ignorant
This
about
is what I'm gonna say, right? Like, so, and I've been pretty open about this. I grew up not seeing myself, right? I grew up not seeing myself in fiction, in international fiction. Obviously, if I watched Filipino fiction, then whatever. Okay.
And were you aware of it? Because when I was a kid, I really wasn't until um, later when I did see myself. If I just saw a brown character, I was like, oh, that's something that I've not really seen before. And then I became aware of it.
I have so I was completely not aware of it to the point where, and I've been on record about this, to the point where when Miles Morales came out in the comics, I was one of the people who said like, "Oh, they're just pandering,
Yeah.
right? Oh, they're just doing this to get sales, right?" And then a kid, maybe like 15 years old, and he was African American, was talking to me about it and said like, Miles Morales is the most relatable character I have ever seen in fiction. And that's when my mind completely like
When you got it.
completely switched. And I'm like, you know what? If there was a Filipino Spider-Man, I would be all over it. Like,
Yeah.
you are absolutely right. You are absolutely correct. And then, like when Wave showed up in Marvel, I was like, well, give me all the Wave you can give me. But even I told you earlier, my favorite Disney movie is Moana,
Yeah.
and a huge part of that is just seeing a brown character who lives on an island, who wears those colors. Um, because like, so I have a friend who her family lives in the mountains of the Philippines.
Mhm.
Moana is from the sea, but like even when you see them dancing, you can see similarities in the dance moves, and that was mind blowing to me. Like I'm like,
It
okay, now I get it. And it
Thank
took
you.
me a long time to get it, but but then I got it.
That is also how I felt about Moana watching it in theaters. It's just like, oh my God, they look like me. That was so cool. Did you watch Raya and the Last Dragon by any chance?
I did.
How did you feel about it?
It's an they tried.
Yeah.
What did you feel? You first.
I feel like a bad Asian saying it, but I was like, I thought it was I enjoyed it for what it was. But I get the conversations around it, but like I'm very much like you give me a warrior princess, you give me two in that movie, I'm like, okay, like I'm probably gonna enjoy it. Like there's a dragon in it. That's what I enjoyed it for.
Yeah, I think in terms of like it being an action movie, I enjoy it and I appreciate the attempt at trying. But I do think that the fact that it tried too much to represent too many things all at once.
Mm.
So there's a comic called Blankets by Craig Thompson. It's autobiographical and it is universally loved by everyone who reads it, even though it's autobiographical and completely specific. And I think it's because it's so specific that people can find their own ways to relate to it, as opposed to coming up with something more general. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, because yeah, so I think that was my ultimate issue with Raya and the Last Dragon. But having said that, if in the stretch between Princess and the Frog and Moana 2, Raya and the Last Dragon is what may be for me their weakest movie, that's a pretty damn good stretch because because it's still a pretty damn good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we will see a very Filipino focused, Filipino centric Disney movie in our lifetime?
I hope so. I really
Yeah.
do. Yeah, I really do.
I hope
I
so
am.
too, but I'm like, I don't want it to come out without me working on it. Like that's the hope. I really want to do something with it. I want to be a
Well,
part of
well, uh, hopefully there will be more than one.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the other stuff that you're currently working on.
Okay.
Um, which one should we do first? All right, let's talk about breasting boobily, which is what a title.
Love it.
So this one is more sexual and adult themed. Where did like how did this come about?
Um, they also contacted me on Instagram and they surprised me with this one because I was like, have you seen my stuff though? Like, I don't know
You're,
what would
you're very
suggest
wholesome.
material. Yeah, very wholesome. Like I do a lot of like very family friendly things usually.
Yeah,
Um, but I appreciated that they saw past that. Maybe it was just like you can draw beautiful female characters. I wonder if that was what the appeal was. But they were very polite about it. They were like, "Would you be comfortable doing more mature themes?" And I was like, "Yeah, that would be really fun, actually." I don't even get like not safe for work commissions, honestly, from like
really.
yeah, from people. That's not something I really get because people just really see like the cutesy work. So that was kind of fun to uh, do something different. Um, in my mind, it's like when actors take on like uh their next movie is like where they bear it all and they're like, oh, this is me like wanting to be taken, looked at differently. In my mind, that was like the funny way of me trying to like parallel it. Um,
It's like
but
how every movie after Captain America, Chris Evans is a bad guy.
yeah, exactly that. This is like me trying not to like pigeonhole myself into like just one kind of project. Um, no, I had so much fun working on that. Like Battle Broad, she was such a fun character to
Yeah.
draw. She was like the main appeal for me with that project. None of the characters were designed beforehand, so I got to come up with all of the designs, and they just described her as like a Red Sonja kind of character who that was a character that I also wasn't super familiar with. I was doing some research on that character and now I have appreciation for that character. But yeah, it was just so fun to draw that. Like my favorite superhero of all time is Wonder Woman. So to create like a badass warrior lady of my own, that was really 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 fun. And that one page, the dialogue where she's just like, "Do you idiots know how hard it is to fight with your tits out?" Like that was the page that I was waiting for to get to draw. What a line!
You mentioned being a your favorite is Wonder Woman, and you also mentioned being a
Yeah.
Batman fan. Are you on that ship, the Wonder Bat ship?
Well, I grew up on the animated Justice League series, so I do, they do come to mind. And also in the DCEU, like they were also kind of leading into that with Ben Affleck and Gal. So
A little bit.
I don't mind the ship. Like honestly, I think they should pair Wonder Woman up with a lady. It's like
It makes
it's
sense.
right. Yeah,
She's from an island full of women.
exactly. How do we not have that? Pair her up with Cheetah. Like, I kind of like that relationship, her and Barbara.
I was gonna say maybe not the bad guy, but you have announced on your on your Instagram. Actually, you announced this last year that your first graphic novel, Cloud Nine, will be published by IDW. Three books.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a bit?
Um, yeah, I mean, that was pretty crazy for me to wrap my head around. Are you familiar with Pit Mad on Twitter? The,
I'm not on
no?
Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, there used to be a hashtag event. It no longer runs, but it was called Pitch Madness, and
Okay.
um, it was a hashtag event, and I think they would hold it every December, where you could just pitch a bunch of your projects, and people from the industry would be able to check out what people had on there, and if you were lucky enough, they would send you a message and be like, "Hey, do you want to pitch this to us officially?" Which is exactly what happened with us. We got an editor from IDW. We had to pinch ourselves, make sure that it was real, um, and that's where it really started. We pitched to her officially. She liked the project, and that's when we got ourselves a contract for it. And that's also when we decided to pick up a literary agent. Which,
Nice.
like I've heard from listening to your show and just listening to a bunch of comic creators in general, I feel like everyone's really discussed like how different their way into the comic scene and the industry is. And it's like once you step into that door, like it just disappears behind you and no one can ever go that same way again, which is what that felt like for me too.
Have you ever heard how Mark Russell, the writer, got into comics?
No. How?
I think he mentioned this in the first interview I had with him, but basically he had already had books published, books, right?
Okay.
And you would think that that would be the way he got into comics, but no. The DC editors liked his Facebook fan fiction, his Facebook, the posts he had on Facebook about fan fiction of Count Chocula.
Count Chocula.
Yeah, because like they're like, all right, he's funny. Let's hire him.
See,
And
there you go.
right, that's not gonna happen to anyone else ever again.
No, not at all.
Right?
And
Absolutely not.
that is the cool thing about fan works too. Like that's something different now with like the digital age. Like when people get in through fan art, a lot of the time, like Babs Tar,
Yeah.
if I'm not right. Um, so yeah, that's pretty cool. And I get jobs from fan art. Like I think fan art gets kind of a bad rep, but like it finds me work sometimes, and that's pretty cool.
No, it's true because, you're available, you're seen, people can easily assess your work without having to ever say that they saw your work. And then they can just easily approach you, especially on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
Dominic, I'm going to ask you, what is the hardest part for your process? Is it the line art? Is it the coloring? Is it the sequentials? Is it the layouts? What is it?
Um, there's been a running joke with my friends that it's like flatting. I don't know what it is. I just get really bored during that part. I get really sleepy during flatting. It would be nice to have an assistant to do that for me. Um, but I don't know. I feel like every part is kind of hard.
All right, here's a question. When you're doing a comic for the page, or if you're doing it for something like Webtoon where it's a vertical scroll,
Mm.
what is the shift in your brain so that you can do the layouts properly for each format?
Um, I don't know about a shift, but it's like with the vertical format of Webtoon, it's just really thinking about what kind of cool sequences can we like utilize this for. Like with for better or worse, there was like this melting effect that
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with. Um, which you can kind of do with just a traditional comic page. Um, but it's I don't know. I guess it is just me kind of thinking of like what's the most interesting thing that I could do with this page to a viewer. That's always something that I'm really concerned about when I'm working on pages is like there I can't remember who said this, but there was one interview I was listening to where this creator was like every page you risk a reader getting bored.
Yeah.
Um, so you want to make sure that every page is as dynamic as it could be and as interesting as it could be to a reader. And that has really haunted me. So whenever I'm working on a page, I'm thinking, is this interesting enough to be looking at? Whether it's like, through the character acting or the facial expressions or the color. Like I'm really trying to make sure that it's as uh, visually appealing to someone as possible. That's really what I'm thinking of.
When you're doing something for Webtoon, does it come into play at all that you might end up printing this eventually, and therefore, do you structure the panels in such a way that you would be able to easily reconfigure them for a printed page, or does that not come into play?
It should, but for those projects specifically, it did not come into play. In fact, with for better or worse, I haven't gotten into tabling yet, but AJ, the writer for that, he does go to conventions and he does sell books, and that's a project that we've been wanting to uh, print out and sell because we have a lot of pride for that project. And I, I just haven't worked up the mental energy yet to reformat for better or worse into traditional comic pages because that wasn't something I was thinking of at the time. Um, and there's also a temptation for me if I do reformat it, I'm just so tempted to redraw everything, which they say not to do. But I know it's gonna
You're gonna
when I
want to.
yeah when I look at it, like I'm very proud of it, but I see all the mistakes. So
That is every artist I ever speak to, by the way.
yeah, that it makes sense. I don't blame them. And when my book comes out, like I've made a mental note for myself where I can't look at each page for too long. Like I can look at it, but then like flip really quickly because then I'll just really start to study it and analyze it too much, and it's not going to be a good day.
You're gonna want to do it over.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna want to do it over. I get it. There's no such thing as it being done. It's just that the deadline hit.
That's really it.
Um, yeah. So, is there anything else that you might want to plug before we go off, or like tell us where we can find you on social media?
Yeah. Look forward to Cloud 9. This is a graphic novel series that I'm currently working on. We haven't officially announced any release dates yet, but you can find all sorts of updates on it on any of my social media platforms. I only go by one username on all my platforms. Dominics, it's DOMMNICS. And if you like Disney or superhero fan art, I have plenty of that on my socials. So yeah, find that over there.
I do love Disney and superheroes. All
Yeah,
right.
you and
What is your favorite thing to draw and your least favorite thing to draw?
me. Ooh. Um, First thing that came to mind was Wonder Woman. That's favorite thing to draw. She's always a favorite character for me. Least favorite thing to draw, straight lines. That's not
Oh,
fun.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like I would have never made it into architecture. Um,
I get that.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's not that fun.
So, wait, hold on. You're a big Snow White fan and you're a big Wonder Woman fan. So I
Yeah.
need to ask you, have you seen the movie?
No, yeah, that's very appropriate to talk about. No, I have not seen it. I'm gonna go see it this coming weekend. I'm just interested to see a new adaptation of the story. I'm really big on fairy tales, so it makes me curious to see how they've reinterpreted this story. Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing about the animated movie that really surprised me rewatching it last year was uh there's not much story in it. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
think she bites the apple until like an hour in, and it's an hour and 10-minute movie.
Yeah. And they're also very interested in focusing away from Snow White herself. There's a lot
Oh,
of focus on cute animals and the dwarves.
oh yeah, that movie is about the dwarves.
Yeah.
That movie's about the dwarves. Uh,
Which kind of interests me in those like early classic Disney princess films is like they're always focusing away from the heroine. They're always like focusing on the animals or completely different characters. Like Sleeping Beauty, it was the three good fairies. They're really the main characters. And for Cinderella, it's the mice.
well, I don't know exactly when it stopped, but I know it was later than I thought it was. But for the longest time, apparently, they had no screenplays.
Oh,
They would they would create these movies all around these gag scenes, right? So that's why something like Snow White, they have when you have the dance number and they kind of just loop the dance number for like 5 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. So
So they
that's
would
what
just
they're doing.
not work with the scripts.
Like they
See?
had a basic document of what would happen, but it wasn't like a full screenplay
I'm sure
until
they're
I want to say actually I want to say it was Aladdin.
okay.
Yeah, it was really late.
Just to connect it to comics, like I'm sure there are comic creators who also work that way without a script and they just kind of have like general plot points. I can't work that way.
You gotta write the full thing.
Yeah, I need to have it written out. But I also at least at this point, like I need a writer with me. Like I love collaborating with other people. I feel like my writing isn't to the point where I need it to be able to write my own things. Like I'd love to do more short comics where I'm writing them myself.
Mhm.
And at one point, like I've told AJ this, I'm like, I want at least one book out there where I've written and drawn it myself, just so I could point at one project and be like, hey, I can do it. I just don't like doing it.
I get
Uh,
that.
yeah.
Well, so there's the full script style. There's what you call the Marvel style, which is the writer gives a basic plot, and then it's up to the artist to interpret. Um, and then there's somebody like Larry Hama who did G.I. Joe and is still doing G.I. Joe. He just draws straight onto the page.
No pencils, just
Well,
no thumb.
he will just thumbnail it onto the page, but he doesn't have a script because he's the
Okay.
writer and the artist. So he's pretty much just like, all right, I guess this happens now.
Yeah, I've heard creators doing that where they don't really write, they kind of just draw the comic out. And I want I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Like I really need to whoever's doing that, I need to just sit beside them, see what they're doing because I feel like that process would probably work for me. I just don't know exactly how they're doing it. Um, I don't know. Like, have you heard about that?
I think that I think that what you I think the key to unlocking that is to understand that the art is authorship. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Because like in a movie, there's a screenwriter and there's a director, and for whatever reason, the director gets most of the credit, but for in
mm,
comics, the writer gets most of the credit. I don't really know why
right.
that is, because I do think like the artist is the equivalent of the director in this case. Um, Give the same script to multiple artists to five artists, you get five different comics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but in that case, what an artist like that is doing is in his mind, he's not just drawing it, he's writing it as he's going along. It's just that the
Right.
way he's writing is in the art. Yeah.
Do you write at all?
I'm gonna go ahead and say no. Uh, I'll answer that off the record.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap this up. So, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you on, and
Thank
I hope
you.
you enjoy the Snow White movie.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm a fan of the show, so this was really cool for me.
Thank you for being a fan of the show. I will attempt to deliver more quality episodes.
Yes, please do, because I need stuff to listen to while I'm working on comics.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dominic.
Thank you.
Congratulations.